Everyone, welcome back to Worship Guitar Sound. This is Joe, and today we're going to walk through how I've been using the Quad Cortex over the last couple of years. This is the patch that we plan to release, so maybe a few edits to it before it comes out to you, but certainly most of this is going to stay the same. So let's dive right into it. We'll start with scene mode, we'll move over to stomp mode, and then at the end of this video, I'll go ahead and play through each of these sounds and give you an idea of what each of these things might sound like in context. So starting off, I've got 8 scenes, which tend to work for most songs that we're playing. And if we need to, of course, I can adjust any of these for a specific song. So moving through, the bottom row here is your typical 4 stages of gain. Really, you only need 3, and then solo is maybe if I want to do something real big at the end of a song or in a big moment of a worship set. On the top row, I've got a tremolo, a chorus, a pog, and a swell setting because praise and worship. Stomp mode here, I've got, this is really set up pretty similar to the way that I would set up a pedal board and the way that my pedal board was set up for years. So bottom row was going to be my overdrives, top row is going to be my wet effects. And so when I had a full pedal board and I was using that regularly, I had a kilt and a protein as my main overdrives. I had a pog at points where I would use maybe an HX stomp or some multi-effects to give me a pog sound. And then I had, of course, a couple of different reverb sounds that I could pull from, some delay sounds I could jump to, and then a couple of different modulations. So I've got a tremolo and a dimension chorus here. So moving over to scenes, our clean setting is, again, going to be that main setting that I might start with, but any of the songs I would jump in and save maybe that primary sound that I would use on the song. Let's talk a little bit about how I use this workflow-wise. So typically on a weekend that I'm playing, I'll set up that weekend here on the side and create a set list of all the different songs that we're playing. So this is going to be the same patch saved 5 or 6 times. And then when I save that patch, I'll save the key signature and the name of the song. And then I'll also save the tempo of that song. And then one other kind of fun thing that you can do with the Quad Cortex is when you switch to that song, you can have it automatically jump to a specific scene that you're using. So, say we're jumping into Who Else Is Worthy, I can have that maybe start me off in a swell setting, or if we're starting that as a bigger song 2 intro, I might jump in right on the pushed sound to do something a little bit bigger. So let's dive through this patch. I'm going to go through each of the blocks and then explain how these scenes, what they're controlling. So, we start off, I do start this off with a noise gate. I feel that the noise gate that's in the Quad Cortex is really useful, really usable. So I leave that on all the time. If it gets in the way, I can turn it off on each patch. Jumping right over, I've got the Jewel compressor. So this is what I think some of the compressors that are in the Quad Cortex, I think they're all very good. You can see the list over here. This is your Boss CS3, the Jewel, which is, I believe, based on like a diamond compressor. And then you've got some more of the studio-based stuff. I found that the Jewel compressor really actually sounds like a guitar compressor, which is what I prefer. And then I'll brighten it up a little bit with the EQ. So these are my settings there. The second patch, or second block rather, that I've got is a transpose block. So I use this when I've got maybe it's a lot of fun. You can do 5 semitones down and make it feel like a baritone, and it tracks really well. So that's just a fun thing to be able to do. But there's a lot of songs, especially the music that we play at Gateway. Cole, who used to write parts, was tuned in D standard for most of what he recorded. So sometimes I need to jump down to do some open string thing that he did if I want to capture that specifically. And, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. I don't have it saved to any of these specific scenes, or even on the stomp mode. I don't have it assigned to anything at the moment. So I would save that per song. The next one is going to be the polyoctaver, which is their POG. It tracks very well. It's a polyphonic octave sort of effect, and I've got both the high and low octave mixed in. And I can set that per scene if I need to. If I want something, maybe throw the poly octave on a swell on a certain song, something like that. So those are my settings there. I think it sounds great. And this is where we jump into the first set of captures that would come with this patch. I've got my kilt. And if you know anything about a kilt, it lacks a little bit on the output side, but still sounds great. So the quad lets me increase the output of this capture without really affecting the tone too much. So there's my kilt into the green protein, the capture that I had of my protein, and then the blue side of the protein. So this is going to be your Nobles ODR1 and your Blues Breaker side. Then I split this off and send it all the way down to the second row so I can use more of these blocks. So right here is where the volume comes in. This is plugged into expression 1 in the log mode. I've got my tremolo. This is the tremolo setting that I've got here. No boost on it. Sometimes I can add that boost if it feels like it needs it. And I do have this set up as a square wave with some panning. You'll hear it. It's a really nice sound, but it's not too big of an effect. And then this is what I've found to be my favorite modulation chorus kind of sound. Really, to me, fills the void of modulation for most songs. So it kind of does that vibrato thing if you need it to, but it's not quite as warbly. It sits better to me with overdrives than just a normal chorus would, and it gives you a really nice widening effect like the Dimension choruses used to do. So if I jump down here to row 3, this is where all the big wet effects come in before the amps. So I've got 2 delays and 3 reverbs. So the first delay, which is on most of the time, unless I'm doing something that needs like a slap reverb or a slap delay rather, something like that. This is going to be the analog delay. Here's my settings. It sits in the background more than you would think that it would. And I do like having a little bit of width, which is really just time delaying one of the sides, but it does make it feel a little bit wider. And then the drive is nice. Now here's a trick on the Quad Cortex. This drive setting works well before amps. It doesn't sound as good after. It's like putting an overdrive after your amp section in a modeler. It doesn't do the same thing for me. So that's a little just piece of knowledge that I've found that I've learned over the years of using this. The dual delay would be the second delay that I use. These are my settings on it as well. Again, quarter and eighth delay. I've got that set up as they're linked. The feedback is linked, and this does pan as well. Now, here's a trick that I've used on this delay to give me that blooming, explosive kind of delay sound that we're used to hearing in front of big overdriven amps, is a ducking delay. So it's not doing a whole lot, but it's just enough that when I'm playing, the delay gets out of the way and allows the notes to speak, but then comes back in when it needs to if I'm doing swells or I'm doing something that's kind of a slower, more melodic line. So those are my settings there. And then over to our plate sound. This is what I've found to be, it's got that kind of cloud thing, but it sits better in the mix. And these are my settings on it. It's a little bit too wet for if I was going to be doing some, kind of blues rock playing, but man, it sits real nice for worship. And of course we need a big wet reverb without too long of a decay to feel right. So that's what this is doing. And then I've got 2 reverbs that I turn on for my swell patch. The Mind Hall, which is very close. I spent months with this and a Big Sky side by side trying to get my cloud setting exactly right. And this is about as close as I could get, to the point where I would jump back and forth and it'd be pretty tough to tell them apart. So this is my setting for Mind Hall to kind of copy the cloud. And then finally, I've got a shimmer, which I'll turn this on and off depending on the song, but it really is a nice shimmer. And those two blended together, as you can see, it's mixed in 10%, but it's just enough to give me a little extra life. So final thing here, I've been through about 1 million different, as you can see. I've tried all the Tone Shepherd stuff. I've tried the worship tutorial stuff, and they all make great sounding captures, but they're not my sound. So, we at the campus that I play at have a backline of amps that sound great, that are mic'd up all the time. And that's what I played for years. So we have Fender Deluxe Reverbs and Vox AC30s. And just having been so used to those amps, I went ahead and captured them into the Quad Cortex. And, it really feels like home playing through them. So this is the Deluxe Reverb, the vibrato channel mic'd up in one of our campuses amp rooms, and then the same thing is true with the AC30. And this is the top boost input. This is what I used for years before moving into the digital world. And then finally, I've got an EQ at the very, very end. This is your high and low shelf that I would typically do if I was doing any record, just to start shaping the guitar to fit in a mix. And then what's nice about this too is if front of house at any point says, hey, I really need maybe a little more 2K, a little less 4K, something like that, to make this fit in the mix better, now you've got a place to go to make that happen. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn off this screen recording and I'll jump over to the different scenes, and we'll start listening through what each of these sounds like.